Hey, Justin here with 65 Drums. Welcome back to the channel. If you live in the United States, you know that by far the biggest sporting event of the year is the Super Bowl. Even if you hate football, you're going to find yourself at a Super Bowl party because literally all of your friends will be there. And there's always a massive concert at the Super Bowl halftime. In fact, millions more people watch these concerts than the actual football game itself. And I'm sure that some of you have noticed that these drummers for these huge bands have been slowly using more and more electronic drum components. I'm talking multipads, triggers, mesh pads, modules, rubber pads, anything you can think of, they're slowly being incorporated more and more every single year. So I thought it would be interesting to do a video showing off every single electronic drum component ever featured at a Super Bowl halftime show. Unfortunately, that turned out to be way harder than I thought it would be, so during the research phase of this video, I decided to cut it down just to looking at the year 2000 to 2020. So this video is gonna be kind of like a build-up video. There's gonna be nothing at first, and then there's gonna be more and more gear to cover as the video goes on. So watch all the way to the end. Starting off in the year 2000, the NFL decided that what we all really needed was a musical. So they brought out the 80-person choir. They brought out the orchestra. Disney ran the show, but it seems like the music was tracked and no real drum set or electronic drum set was to be seen. This was a very, very weird halftime show. I don't even really have words to describe what was going on here. 2001 seems to be a backlash to 2000 because it was a completely different show. This time, they brought out Britney Spears, Aerosmith, and NSYNC. A very strange combination, and they're all trying to share the stage and do songs, and it was kind of a mess, but it was very interesting to watch. I'll link it down in the description below. This year did feature a drum set, but it was hard to get a good look at it, and I do not know if any electronic drum components were being used. Moving ahead to 2002, this year it was U2 putting on the show, and they actually had a great concert. But again, no electronic drums were to be seen. The first glimpse of electronic drum components that I saw was in 2003. The drummer Adrian Young for the band No Doubt looked like he was using some sort of red drum trigger. It's hard to say exactly what it was because the farther you go back, the less information there is, and the grainier the video footage is, but I'm guessing it was probably a DDrum trigger. Moving ahead to 2004, we have the notorious concert by Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. The drummer was Little John Roberts. I couldn't really see his setup in any of the video footage, but he is very well known for using a lot of different Yamaha electronic components. He uses a Yamaha DTX900M around this time, also a few drum triggers. He's also been known to use a DrumKat at times in his live setup. Okay, so jumping ahead to 2005, this was Paul McCartney. And the drummer Abraham did not use any electronics in his setup. He does use edrum gear now though. I've seen him with a Yamaha Multi-12 sample pad, 2 rubber Dauz Pads, and 2 mesh pads, I believe, to the right of his drum set. Also, even though no electronic drum gear was used at the main event here, in 2005, there was a pre-show by Stevie Wonder featuring 2 electronic drum sets. I believe the one on the left was a Roland TD10, and the one on the right was some sort of Roland PD8 drum set. Stevie Wonder will always be one of my favorite musicians. So we're gonna jump through a few years really quickly because almost no electronics were used between the years 2006 through 2011. There was the Rolling Stones, Prince, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Bruce Springsteen, The Who, and the Black Eyed Peas. The only exception here is Prince, and I almost missed this one to be honest. At first glance, it looks like no electronic drums were being used on the drum set, but the camera just briefly gives us a look at the left side of the drum set, and you can clearly see a Roland SDS sample pad. This concert was performed at the very end of the life cycle of the Roland SDS, because the SPDSX was announced in September of 2007. And famously, this concert was performed in the rain, so I'm really hoping that the water did not fry that sample pad. But of course, if we're being honest, famous artists like this don't actually buy gear in the first place. Companies just mail them stuff for free. And by the way, going back to the Who concert for a second, that drum set was acoustic, but since then they've switched over to a fully electronic rig. The drummer for the Who is Ringo Starr's son, Zach Starkey, and he now uses a full conversion electronic drum set with shells made by DW, triggers inside of them with mesh heads. He uses Roland cymbals and drum samples for what you're actually going to hear. This is one of the nicest looking electronic conversion drum sets I've seen. Moving ahead to 2012, this was Madonna's show, and this is the beginning of more and more electronic drums being featured at the Super Bowl. This was also the first time that Brian Frasier-Moore played drums at the Super Bowl. He'll be back several times throughout the rest of this video. I couldn't see his drum set from the footage of the event, but I tracked down the kit he used because it was actually featured at NAMM that year. So I'll link to the video in the description if you want to see like a full walk around of the kit. But it had a DrumKat and multiple bar triggers. It's a pretty sweet looking drum set. And I tracked down his actual home setup around this time frame in this year, and his home setup is even crazier than that drum set from NAMM. His drum set changes so much, and it would be a nightmare to track down exactly all of what he's using from month to month. But thankfully he has a very useful Instagram account where he posts all kinds of different behind the scenes photos of his ever-changing drum set. You seriously should follow it. 2013 was Beyonce's show. The marketing team did post some rehearsal footage to YouTube, and you can clearly see a massive acoustic drum set in the rehearsals with a Roland SPDS sample pad to the left of the kit. In this footage, the drummer was Cora Coleman Dunham. Moving ahead to 2014, this is my personal favorite show of the 2000s. It was the Bruno Mars concert. Bruno Mars did that famous drum solo at the beginning of the show, but for the rest of the concert, his brother was the main drummer, Eric E. Panda Hernandez. He was playing a beautiful DW drum set with Sabian cymbals, but no electronic drums that I could see. But that's just his setup for that particular concert. In his regular everyday setup that he uses on tour, he actually does use a lot of electronic drum gear. He's been known to use a Roland TD50 drum module, a Roland PD128BC mesh pad, a PDX6 mesh pad, and also a BT1 bar trigger. Moving up to 2015, Katy Perry was the star of the show. Her drummer is Adam Marcello. Cameramen hate to show drum sets on screen for some unknown reason, but he actually did a great breakdown video where he explained his entire drum setup in depth. He uses a Korg WaveDrum Global Edition, 4 rubber Roland PD8 rubber pads, a Roland SPDSX, Ablton Live runs everything. He uses Mainstage and AP Trigger as the interface. He claims he gets around 3 milliseconds of latency, and he's doing lots of MIDI automation. And then finally, he also uses 2 Roland kick drum triggers on the ground. It's 2 Roland KD7's daisy chains together. And by the way, if you're interested in Adam Marcello's setup and how he approaches using electronic and acoustic drums together, he actually just produced a full set of videos with Roland that's worth checking out. Moving ahead to 2016, there were a lot of different famous artists in this show, but the only one that actually used any electronic drum elements that I could see was Coldplay. Their drummer Will Champion didn't really use a lot of electronic drum stuff, but I did see 1 Roland side snare pad to the left of the drum set and chrome drum triggers from Yamaha. 2017 was Lady Gaga's show. I'm not sure if I could sing after jumping off of a 10 stories high platform, but she did it somehow. Her drummer is Chris Johnson. His drum set was not visible from the footage, however he thankfully did share a photo of his drum set that he used on the field to Instagram. It's fairly simple. It's just 1 Yamaha Multi-12 sample pad and a Yamaha DTX silicone tom pad to the right of the drum set. He did also share a touring setup with an interview that he did with Cosmo Music. In this larger expanded drum set, he uses 2 Yamaha Multi-12 sample pads and 3 DTX silicone pads from Yamaha as well, 2 to the right and 1 to the left. What I'm seeing here is that the regular touring setups of a lot of these bands seems to be a lot more complex than what they actually use at the Super Bowl due to how fast everything has to be set up. Moving ahead to 2018, Brian Frasier-Moore was back, and this time he was drumming for Justin Timberlake. This time he used 5 rubber Dauz pads, an alternate mode DrumKat MIDI controller, a TD50 drum module, and a Roland digital snare. He's even named this drum set. He calls it the Black Spaceship Coupe. Moving ahead to 2019, Maroon 5 was doing the show, and their drummer Matt Flynn uses 3 Roland PDX8 or PDX6 pads, and that's pretty much the extent of his setup. Unfortunately, I couldn't see what kind of module or what kind of interfaces were plugged into, but that's pretty much all I know of his setup. Moving ahead to 2020, this was Shakira and Jennifer Lopez's show, and Brian Frasier-Moore is back as the drummer again. This is one seriously busy dude. He seems to have drummed for everybody. This 2020 setup has the most electronics ever featured at the Super Bowl to my knowledge. There's so much stuff here that I was convinced there were actually 2 separate drum sets. In this photo, it looks like there's a Roland VAD506 drum set, and in this photo, it looks like a Pearl drum set with Sabian cymbals. But no, those are actually just different camera angles of the same drum set. These drums were played 100% live, so let's break down what's happening here. There's a Roland SPDSX to the left of the drum set, something that we're seeing again and again in different setups. It's usually a Multi-12 from Yamaha or Roland SPDSX. There's also a Roland TD50 that you can't see in the main photo, but someone got a photo of it. There's at least 3 Roland RT30HR drum triggers on the different acoustic drums. There's also at least 3 Roland BT1 bar triggers. Over on the right, there's almost an entire Roland VAD506 drum set. There's 2 high toms, a floor tom, the Roland 20-inch kick drum, and 3 cymbals. And because this setup has changed so much from when he was playing with Justin Timberlake, he's renamed the setup to the Black Lamborghini. Did I miss something? Probably, but that's the majority of what he's using in this setup from what I can tell. Hey, by the way, if you want to watch any of these concerts, I've linked to all 20 of them down in the description below, along with links to all the different gear being used, the names of the drummers, and all that stuff. By the way, those are Amazon affiliate links that help support the channel at no cost to you if you wish to use them. Have an amazing day. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. You're the real MVP. I'll see you guys in a few.